Let's do D really quickly. We've got y equals negative 6x plus 1. Remember, what's our form in slope-intercept form? What is it, AJ? You're amazing. Y equals mx plus b. So remember, what is our m value in letter D? What's the value of m? Actually, backtrack. First off, does this match slope-intercept form?
Yes.
It sure does. What's the value of m then? Christian? Good. So m is negative 6. And what's the value of b? What's the value of b? Addison? 1. B is equal to 1. Very good. So now, do you guys remember what m stands for? It represents something about our line. Y-intercept? Yes, but that's not m. Christian? Good. M is the slope. So circle it and write that this is the slope. So our slope is negative 6. Now our b value, which is 1, is what, Miss Gagnier?
It's the y-intercept.
This is the y-intercept, okay? And if we wanted to be very, very particular and write our y-intercept as a point, does anyone know what the point would be? What would it be, David? 0, 1. We Gucci? Questions on this one? Okay. What about E? Y equals 8. Y equals 8. Sophia?
The m is 0.
Good. The m is 0. And the b value? 8. Remember, guys, it is in slope-intercept form if your y is by itself on the left-hand side. So even though, what are we missing in E? What term are we missing? The x term, right? The mx term. So m had to be 0 so that there's no x term, but b is still equal to 8. So that means my slope is what? My slope is 0. And my y-intercept? Not 0. My y-intercept is 8, which is 0, 8 as a point. Now, let's get really, really good at this. If my slope is 0, what kind of line is this? David? A what? No. Karen?
Horizontal.
Very good. Horizontal. Okay? David, if my slope was undefined, what kind of line would it be? Very good. It's a vertical line. Okay? Remember, horizontal, your slope is going to be 0. Vertical, your slope is going to be undefined. Okay, let's check it out. Number F. Letter F. X plus 4y equals negative 10. Is this in slope-intercept form? No, not quite. Why not? Christian? It's in standard form. Very good. X and y cannot be on the same side. So our mission is to get y by himself, right? So what could we do to this equation to go ahead and start solving? Alec? Good. We want it to match. You're absolutely right. Y equals mx plus b. But Alec, you agree right now it doesn't? Right now, this equation does not match y equals mx plus b? Correct. There's no m. The x is on the same side as y. What could we do, Sophia, to have it match? Good. Subtract x first. Now we have what when we subtract x? Karen? Negative 10 minus x. Perfect. Then what? AJ? Yes, divide by 4. Check it out, peeps. You're going to write y equals, distribute this 4 as the denominator for both terms. So we're going to get negative 10 over 4 minus x over 4. You guys with me? Is anyone confused on that step? Garnies? You're confused? Okay. So do you remember when we had, for example, like 4 and we put in parentheses negative 10 minus x? Garnies, what would you do with this 4 on the outside? Distribute it, right? You would distribute it to the negative 10 and to the negative x. It's the same when we're dividing. You have to distribute the 4 to both terms. So it needs to go with the 10 and it needs to go with the x. Does that make sense? No? Still confused? Okay. So we'll go over another problem like this on the homework and then raise your hand when we get there. Okay? All right. So negative 10 over 4, guys. Can we simplify it? How? You can divide both by 2. So it's going to be y equals negative 5 over 2 minus, I would like to rewrite negative x over 4 so I can see what the slope is. Does anyone know how to rewrite it? Karen? Yes, negative 1x over 4. And even better, we're going to write it as negative 1/4 and bring the x on the outside. Because remember, multiplying by a negative 1/4 is the same as dividing by a negative 4. So we have not changed our equation at all. Okay, we've just simplified it. Now, if I want to be very, very particular, I should reverse the order of what? Christian? Good. Both fractions should be reversed, so it's in mx plus b form. So we're going to write it as y equals negative 1/4 x minus 5 over 2. Is it in y equals mx plus b form? Yes. Is it completely simplified? Yes. So what we need to do now is figure out, okay, what's our m and what's our b? And then we can find the slope and the y-intercept. What is the value of m here, guys? Addison? I love it. Negative 1/4. And that is the same as what? Alec? 0.25, negative 0.25. And I can call that what? What did we just find? The slope. And now b, which was negative 5 over 2, is what? My y-intercept. So my y-intercept as a coordinate is going to be 0, comma, negative 5 over 2. Caitlin. Why didn't I just subtract the 4? Because, remember, we have to use opposite operations. What's that 4 doing to the y?
No, like in the beginning.
In the beginning?
Yeah.
You can't subtract that 4y, because then you're moving the y to the right-hand side. Okay?
Yeah, subtract x from 4 and y. From the 4y.
We did subtract the x, yep. But remember, David, you only subtract one time from each side of the equation. So when we subtract x here, right? Do you agree that x and 4y are on the same side of the equation? So this counts once, and then we have to do it on the right-hand side. Okay? Yeah. Matthew?
You know when you go m equals slope and b equals y-intercept?
Yes.
So what equals the x-intercept?
Ah, the x-intercept. So in slope-intercept form, we don't know the x-intercept. You only know the y-intercept, okay? Now, how could you find the x-intercept, guys? How were we finding the x-intercept before? Karen? That is a formula, but that's for slope. How do you find the x-intercept, Austin?
Y 0.
Good, you can just set y equal to 0, and then you'll find it. Do you remember when we would set y equal to 0, and you would get x equals negative 10 here? This is our x-intercept, okay? So you can always find the x-intercept by setting y equal to 0, or you can find the y-intercept by setting x equal to 0. Let's actually do it. If we were to set x equal to 0 here, guys, you guys agree we would get 0 plus 4y equals negative 10? And we would divide both sides by 4. So, by positive 4, excuse me. by 4. So my y-intercept should be negative 5 over 2. Isn't that what my b value ended up being? Do you guys see that? So remember, your b value is going to be your y-intercept, not your x-intercept, okay? All right. Lastly, guys, this is the last part of the lesson. We are going to start graphing them, okay? So we're going to graph the linear equation, and then we're going to identify the x-intercept. Guys, write down these 3 steps. There's 3 steps to do these kinds of problems. Step number 1 is you need to make sure it matches y equals mx plus b form. Does anyone remember what that form is called? Andrea? Slope-intercept form. Very good. Okay, step number 2. Once you've done that, you always start with your y-intercept, okay? And my y-intercept is always going to be which letter in the formula? It's going to be your b value, okay? And then the third step is we're going to start at our y-intercept, and we're going to use the slope to find other points on the line. And our slope was which letter up there? M. Very good. Colin, you okay? Yeah. Okay. Casey, you good? Gabriel?
Yes.
Good? All right. Do we have down our 3 steps? Okay. Look at letter A. Is step number 1 Gucci? Is it in y equals mx plus b form? No, it is not. So we have to start there. What could we do to make 2x plus y equals 2 into slope-intercept form? Austin? Thank you. Will you subtract 2x? Are we Gucci on that? Yes? So if we subtract 2x, what do I now have as my equation? Addison? 2 minus 2x. Very good. Now, this is still not in y equals mx plus b form. Does anyone know why? Matthew?
Because the x is on the right side.
Good. So can we reverse the order of that?
Yeah.
How could we write it, Matthew?
Negative 2x plus 2.
Very good. Negative 2x plus 2. Remember, it's a plus 2 because this 2 was a positive. Now we're in y equals mx plus b form. Do you guys agree? Is step number 1 done? Is step number 1 completed?
Yeah.
Yes. Step number 2 was what? The y-intercept. What's my y-intercept here?
2.
It's 2. So write that down. My y-intercept is 2. And let's be specific. If I were to list it as a point, what's its coordinate? 0, 2. Make x equal to 0 and write your y-intercept. 2. My y-intercept, it goes here on my graph or here? It goes here on my graph or here? The first one. Does anyone know why? Christian? Good. A y-intercept means it intersects the y-axis, correct? What axis is this guy over here intersecting? The x-axis. Do we want him to intersect the x-axis? No, because that's an x-intercept. So erase that second guy. All we want is the first one, 0, 2. So we're Gucci, right? What was step number 3? Slope. Who knows the slope of this guy? It's not 2. It's negative 2. Watch carefully. We need to write negative 2 as a fraction so we know the rise and we know the run. Does anyone know what negative 2 as a fraction would be? Gabriel?
Negative 2 over 1.
Yes, negative 2 over 1. Now, who remembers with rise and run, our slope is equal to what? M. And then if you want to write it as rise and run, we put what on top? Rise over the run. So my rise here is what? My rise is negative 2. And my run is what? 1. X is the run is the x and the rise is the y. Guys, listen carefully. If you're rising negative 2, where do I move? What?
Downwards.
Down. How many? 2. So start at this point. and draw an arrow going down 2 units. If my run is a positive 1, guys, where do I move after that? To the right. How many? 1. So my next point should go right here. How many points does Mr. Yurko want? 3. So let's do it one more time. David, hold on. I'm going to answer your question. Just give me 2 seconds. Go down 2 again, and then where? To the right 1, and you should get another point. All of these points should lie on the same what? Line. Is there a line that goes through all 3 of them? And that line must have what on the ends of it? Arrowheads. Okay, David, what's your question?
How come we didn't go to -2?
How come we didn't go to -2? Because remember, you start at your y-intercept. What was my y-intercept?
2.
Positive 2. Then we used the slope, which was -2 over 1. So down 2 to the right 1 to find the next 2 points. You got it? Questions? Okay, we have almost finished this problem. Read the instructions again. What haven't we done? Matthew?
Identify the x-intercept.
Identify the x-intercept. So you can either set y equal to 0 in your equation or look at this line. How could we figure out the x-intercept just by looking at the line, guys? Just by looking at the line. Matthew?
You see where it touches x.
Excellent. Where does it touch the x-axis? At 1. So my x-intercept is 1 or 1 comma 0. Do you guys all see how my line is going to touch the x-axis at the point 1 comma 0? Where does it touch the y-axis? At 0 comma 2, or my y-intercept is 2. Caitlin? How did I get the 1? So look, do you see the value of x here? It's 1, right? Whenever this red line crosses the x-axis, that's going to be your x-intercept. So they cross at the point 1. Do you see that? A little bit? Juliana, you with me? Okay. Any other questions? AJ? For the x-intercept? No, you could just say x-intercept is 1. Or you could say the x-intercept is 1 comma 0. I'll take either one. Yes, Alec? You're confused about the graphing?
So I thought that we were gonna move I thought we were just gonna keep on going down. Why did we move an inch to the left? Right.
Why did we go to the right?
Yeah.
Because remember, it was -2 over +1. Do you agree?
How did we get the 1 again?
Because anytime you have a slope, you want to write it as a fraction, so you get a rise and a run. Alec, can we do one more and see if you have the same question? Okay, let's do B, and then Alec, I'll come back to your question. Okay, don't look back. Who remembers step number 1? Y equals mx plus b. Mr. Salucci, is this already in y equals mx plus b form? Easy problem. It's already done step number 1 for us. Step number 2, Gabriel, what was it?
Find the y-intercept.
Y-intercept. Does anyone know what the y-intercept is here? It's -4. It's your b value. Do we see that? Are we Gucci? Alfred? Go ahead, okay? Guys, what is my y-intercept as a coordinate? As a coordinate, Andrea? 0, comma, -4. Before I go to step 3 and find the slope, what do I need to do on my graph? Put the y-intercept. Put 0, comma, -4. It's down here, right? Why is it on this line and not this one? Go ahead. Why is it on this line and not this one? Andrea? It's y and it's a negative, okay? It must be on the y-axis because it's a y-intercept. Yes? Okay. So, after that, what was step number 3? Number 3. What? Slope. What's the slope here? 4. Let's write it as a fraction. Alec, what is 4 written as a fraction? Good. You get it now? So, 4 over 1. Matthew, what is my rise if my slope is 4 over 1?
4.
Good. My rise is 4. And my run?
4.
So from this point, where am I going to move? Up 4, David says, and he is correct. And then where? 1 to the right. So from 0, -4, my next point should be 1, 0. Do it again. Up 4 to the right, 1. And they should all be on the same line. Alfonso, you Gucci?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we allowed to like put the hoops on the
Are we allowed to put the hoops on the line?
every time we done?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So, David, you're saying like go like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then go over 1? Yes. Okay.
On the graph?
You could do it on the graph. Yep. You could do it twice. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then to the right 1. If I continue doing the slope, are all of those points going to lie on that same line?
Yes.
You betcha. Because a straight line has the same slope no matter where you are. Here's the part that trips people up. Does anyone know what my x-intercept is? Nick?
1, 0.
Very good. Why? Very good. When my graph crosses the x-axis, it's at 1, 0. Caitlin, do you see it? Yeah? Yeah, Andrea. What if it doesn't tell you a y-intercept? Like, what do you mean? If y equals 4x, you still have a y-intercept. Does anyone know? That's actually a really good question. So, what if y equals 4x? What's my b value? 0. So what's my y-intercept? The origin, 0, 0. Okay?
What about the slope? Would it be the same?
It would be what?
4?
4. Mm-hmm.
Like, what if it didn't have a slope though?
If it didn't have a slope, so if it was just y equals 0, that's a special case. What happens when y equals a number? We get a special kind of line. No, it's not a point. It's not undefined. Yep. What kind of line is that? Horizontal. Okay, we need to know our special cases. When x equals a number, what kind of line do we get? A vertical line with an undefined slope. Okay? All right. Guys, I want you to try C and D right now on your own, and then we'll go over them together. Remember, you're graphing it and you're finding the x-intercept. Go. Okay, the answers to C and D are on the board. Check what you got. Check whether you got it right, whether you got it wrong, and then talk in your groups. Go. So, do you guys agree for this one we were supposed to subtract 3x from both sides? Yes? Yeah? So minus 3x, minus 3x. Guys, what's negative 3 minus 3x? It's negative 3 minus 3x. Y equals negative 3 minus 3x. Do not change that negative 3 to a positive. David?
They're both negative.
Uh-huh. Are we multiplying them, David?
No.
Oh. So do they stay negative? They sure do. Yep.
Why do we bring them down to like crazy?
Huh?
Like why do we have 2, 3 instead of just 1?
Because negative 3, can you combine negative 3 with negative 3x? Why not? They're not like terms, okay? So we just write it how we're writing it. We're doing negative 3 minus 3x. Now, we have to reverse the order because it needs to match slope-intercept form. So it should be negative 3x minus 3. Are we Gucci with this? What have we just done? Step number 1, okay? Step number 2. Find your y-intercept. What's my y-intercept? It's -3. So that means at -3, I should have a dot. And your slope should have been -3 or -3 over 1. Your rise was -3 and your run was 1. So you should have gone down 3 and then to the right 1. Down 3 and then to the right 1. How many of us got C from start to finish? Raise your hands. Okay, if you didn't, guys, learn from it. Write down everything I wrote down. Learn from it. Okay, who got D and can explain it? Who got D and can explain it? Sophia, go for it. Good.
And then you get 2y equals 6 minus x.
6 minus x, I love it.
And then divided by 2. And then you get y equals 6 over 2. And then negative x over 2.
Good, minus x over 2. Okay.
And then I got y equals 3 over 1.
Good.
And then I got negative 1/2 x.
Mm-hmm.
And then I put y equals negative 1/2 x plus 3.
Good. What'd you do after that?
My slope was negative.
Slope does not come next. What's step number 2?
Oh, my y-intercept.
Thank you. Y-intercept?
3.
3. So you started at 3. And then what'd you do?
And then I found my slope, which is negative 1 over 2.
-1 over 2. So your rise was,
Negative 1,
so in other words, we're going down 1, and your run?
2.
So we're going to the right 2. Go down 1 to the right 2. Do it 3 times. And then when you extend your line, your x-intercept should have been 6. How many people got this one? Because this one was more challenging. Love it. Okay. Addison, what's up?
Why didn't you switch the 6 and the x?
I could have. Okay. Eventually at the end, so Sophia did switch them at the end. Do you see how it's written in the correct order?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter when you switch it, but you will eventually have to switch it. So you're saying up here, you wrote it as negative x plus 6?
Yes.
That's fine, okay? If you write it like that way from the beginning, you're gonna get you got the same answer though, right? Okay. Good questions. Any other questions on this guy? Okay, peeps, you are